Okay, so get this. We're diving into onions today.
Onions.
Yeah, onions.
Yeah.
But not the kind you're thinking,
Yeah.
like the ones you chop up for dinner.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What kind of onions are we talking about?
We're talking about onion seeds. And get this, bees, the tiny heroes behind every crunchy onion.
Oh, wow. Onion seeds. I admit that's not something I usually think about.
Right, like we see onions at the store and just assume, well, they just kind of grow. But no, there's a whole seed production process, and bees are crucial for that.
That's fascinating. So most people don't even realize this whole other world exists.
Exactly. And what's even crazier is that a potential onion shortage might not be because of, like, bad weather or anything.
Wait, really? What's causing it then?
Get this, disappearing bees. They're vanishing, and it's messing with the whole onion seed production cycle.
No bees, no onions. I mean, it makes sense when you think about it, but I never really put it together.
Right. And it's not just some abstract thing. This is impacting farmers, their livelihoods right now.
Yeah. Oh, wow, that's serious. So, for those of us who aren't exactly onion farmers, break it down for us. How does this whole onion seed thing work?
Yeah, like walk us through it.
Sure, so the onions we eat, those are the bulbs of the plant. But to grow more onions, you need seeds, and those come from onion flowers.
Okay, that makes sense. But where did the bees come into this?
Well, bees are the pollination heroes. They carry pollen from one onion flower to another, and that's what lets them make seeds.
So no bees, no pollen party, no onion seeds.
Pretty much. And that's exactly the problem farmers are facing right now, especially in India. They're seeing way fewer bees than usual.
India. Why India?
They're one of the biggest onion seed producers in the world. Imagine massive fields usually buzzing with bees during pollination season, but now silent, almost eerie, like one farmer described it.
Wow, that's a powerful image. So how big of a deal is this exactly?
India produces roughly 15,000 tons of onion seeds every year, and most of that depends on those busy little bees.
15,000 tons. That's going to be a lot of onions.
Yeah.
And all because of, well, a lack of bees.
It is. It's a huge amount. And this bee shortage is hitting farmers hard. We've spoken to Nitin Mulik. He's an onion seed farmer in India.
So he's seeing this firsthand, the impact of fewer bees.
Absolutely. He's used to his fields being abuzz with bees, especially between January and March, which is prime pollination time for onions. This year, nothing. It's affecting his entire crop.
That must be so stressful.
Yeah.
And it's not just him, right?
Sadly, no. This is affecting onion seed production all over India. We also heard from Parevnath B. Tomber. He leads a seed company called Elora Natural Seeds.
Elora Natural Seeds. Okay, and what's he saying?
He's seeing a massive drop in seed yield across all the farms they work with. It's a widespread problem.
So we've got empty fields, worried farmers, and potentially a whole lot less onions in the future. But the big question is, why are the bees disappearing? What's going on?
Well, there's no single answer. It's likely a combination of things, but one major factor is pesticides.
Pesticides. Okay, so like the stuff farmers use to protect their crops.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Even if onion farmers aren't directly using pesticides on their onions, neighboring farms might be.
And that's affecting the bees that would pollinate the onions.
Exactly. It's like you're doing everything right, but actions miles away can still impact you. It shows how connected everything is.
Kind of a scary thought, right? Like a domino effect we don't even see coming.
It is. And sadly, this isn't just happening in India. Bee populations are declining globally for all sorts of reasons. Habitat loss, climate change, even diseases.
So it's a much bigger issue than just onions then. It's about our whole ecosystem.
It is, and the consequences could be much bigger than we realize.
So if the bees aren't there to do their job, what are farmers doing to save their crops? What are their options?
Some are trying manual pollination, which is basically doing the bee's job by hand.
Wait, so like going from flower to flower with a tiny paintbrush or something?
You got it. But it's incredibly labor-intensive and nowhere near as efficient as the bees.
Yeah, I can imagine. Trying to pollinate an entire field by hand. That sounds exhausting.
It is, and it doesn't even come close to what bees can do naturally. It's a last resort and not a very good one.
So manual pollination's off the table. What else can farmers do? Are there any other options out there?
There are, and this is where things get really interesting. Turns out not all bees are created equal. Some are better at pollinating onions than others.
Oh, like they're a bee specialist. That's so cool.
It's true, we're not just talking your average honeybee here. These onion-loving bees are often solitary bees, like mason bees or leafcutter bees.
Solitary bees, so they don't live in those big hives like honeybees.
Nope, they operate solo. Each female builds her own nest and raises her young all on her own. No queen bee calling the shots.
Wow, so it's every bee for themselves. That's pretty different from the honeybee world.
It is, and while they might be onion pollinating champs, they come with their own set of challenges for farmers.
Hmm. What makes them so tricky to manage?
Well, because they're solitary, it's hard to create big, centralized populations that you can easily move from farm to farm. Honeybees are like a well-oiled machine. Solitary bees are more like independent contractors.
Oh, so you can't just order a truckload of solitary bees to show up and pollinate.
Exactly. And their life cycles and nesting habits are different too. Honeybees love those big, colorful hives beekeepers provide, but solitary bees prefer to nest in existing holes like hollow stems or holes in wood.
So it's not as simple as just setting up a few bee boxes and hoping for the best. You need to cater to their unique needs.
You got it. Farmers have to create the right nesting habitats, make sure the surrounding environment is good for them. It's a whole different ballgame.
Sounds like there's a real opportunity for innovation here. We need to figure out how to make solitary bees more accessible to farmers.
I agree, and there are some cool developments happening. People are working on artificial nesting structures that mimic the natural environment for these solitary bees.
Like a bee hotel, tailored to their specific needs. That's awesome.
It is. But even with all these innovations, we still have to address the root causes of bee decline. Technology alone won't solve this problem.
Right, it's got to be a multi-pronged approach, like tackling pesticide use, promoting biodiversity, all that good stuff.
Absolutely. It's a team effort. Farmers, scientists, even everyday consumers, we all have a part to play.
So what we're seeing with these onion seeds, it's a microcosm of a much larger issue. It shows how interconnected everything is.
It really does. Our food systems are completely intertwined with the health of our ecosystems.
And taking care of bees, it's not just about onions, it's about our planet, our future.
Exactly. Bees are vital for so many crops, almonds, apples, even coffee. Their decline could impact our diets in ways we haven't even imagined.
That's pretty sobering, but it's also a call to action. We need to change our relationship with nature, find ways to coexist with these pollinators. Okay, so we've talked about the problem, the potential impact, and the need for change. But what can farmers actually do right now to make their farms more bee-friendly? What are some practical steps?
Well, one of the most effective things is actually pretty simple, creating a more diverse landscape.
Diverse landscape. Okay, what does that mean exactly?
Think of it like a buffet. If there's only one dish, it's not very interesting, right? Bees are kind of the same way.
So more variety, more options for the bees.
Exactly. Bees need a variety of flowers throughout the whole season. Different flowers provide different nutrients.
Makes sense. So how can farmers create this diverse landscape?
There are a few ways. They can plant wildflowers along the edges of their fields, use cover crops that flower, even just let some native plants grow in areas they don't cultivate.
So basically, make the farm environment more bee-centric, give them plenty of options to choose from.
That's the idea. And it's not just about what you plant, but also what you avoid using. We've talked about pesticides, but it's worth repeating. Reducing or eliminating them is huge.
Right, because even if it's not directly on the onions, those pesticides can still drift over and harm the bees.
Exactly. And luckily, there are alternatives to pesticides. Things like integrated pest management, which uses a mix of techniques to control pests instead of relying on just chemicals.
Integrated pest management. Okay, so what would that look like in practice?
Well, say a farmer's dealing with aphids. Instead of just spraying a bunch of insecticide, they might introduce beneficial insects like ladybugs, which eat aphids.
Ah, so fight nature with nature. Clever.
It is. They could also adjust their planting schedule to avoid peak aphid season, or even use physical barriers to protect the crops.
So it's about working with nature's rhythms, not just trying to force things.
Exactly. And lots of farmers already use practices like crop rotation, which helps disrupt pest cycles naturally.
Right, switching up what's planted in a field each year.
You got it. And good soil management, choosing disease-resistant crops, all these things can help prevent pest outbreaks in the first place.
It sounds like a whole system, moving away from just spraying chemicals and hoping for the best.
It is. It takes time, knowledge, and a bit of a mindset shift. But the benefits are huge, not just for the bees, but for the whole ecosystem.
Okay, so food sources, pest management, what else can farmers do to make their farms more bee-friendly?
Nesting habitat. Remember those solitary bees? They need places to nest, and farmers can help with that.
Like building them little bee houses.
Exactly. Or even simpler things like leaving patches of bare ground for ground nesting bees, providing bundles of hollow stems. It doesn't have to be complicated.
So it's about thinking beyond just the crops, creating a whole environment that welcomes bees.
Absolutely. Diverse foods, safe nesting spots, minimal exposure to harmful stuff. That's the goal.
And while farmers are doing their part, what about us regular folks? Can we do anything to help the bees?
You bet. Supporting local beekeepers is a great start. Buy their honey, it helps promote sustainable beekeeping and keeps those beekeepers going.
So, voting with our wallets, supporting the good guys.
Exactly. And if you have a garden, plant bee-friendly flowers, avoid using pesticides, create your own little bee haven.
Even in a city, you can make a difference.
Absolutely. And don't underestimate the power of talking about this, spreading awareness. Tell your friends, share info online, support organizations fighting for bees.
This deep dive has been so eye-opening. It's really highlighted how connected we are to nature, to these tiny creatures that do so much for us.
I agree. It's not just about saving the bees, it's about realizing we need each other. Their survival is connected to ours.
Well said. It's a partnership, and it's up to us to make sure it thrives. It's been a fascinating conversation, and I hope everyone listening feels inspired to take action, whether it's planting flowers, supporting beekeepers, or just talking about the importance of bees. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and let's all do our part to keep the world buzzing.